Thank you very, very much for coming here today. This is very, very important, especially what's happening with all of our energy needs for our future. My name is Senator Mario Mattera. I represent the 2nd Senate District in Suffolk County, which includes the towns of Huntington and Smithtown on Long Island. I am the ranking Republican member on the Energy Committee, and I am proud to be here today to protect our ratepayers and our small businesses from the senseless and rushed energy policies that are increasing costs and will have disastrous impact on all New Yorkers. Our utility bills will go up 10 times more due to these unfunded mandates. I would like to thank Leader Ort, not for only appointing me as the ranker on the Republican side to this important committee, but for being so vocal on this vital issue. And I thank my fellow Republicans on the Energy Committee, Senator Tom O'Mara and Senator Mark Walczak, for being great partners in trying to bring common sense, and I'm going to say it again, common sense, back to our state's energy policies, and for all of my colleagues for being here today. We have been very interesting committee meetings at our budget hearings. It's been very, very interesting. Senator Parker today, we just had that, our chairman, and you know, we'll be having discussions on what the cost is going to cost. We finally got it out of Senator Parker that, in other words, yes, it's going to be the ratepayers that are going to be paying for this experiment. We have continually warned the CLCPA continues to negatively impact our ratepayers and businesses that are already struggling to keep them to have their lights on. That is why over 2 million New Yorkers have left the state due to costs here that are gouging all New Yorkers. States like North Carolina, South Carolina, Texas, Tennessee, even South Dakota. Does everybody realize that we've lost a congressional seat? We have lost a congressional seat for people that are exiting out of here. We're ready to lose another congressional seat because of gouging our New York's ratepayers. We have seen Con Ed, National Grid, and other raised rates to comply with the unreasonable mandates of the CLCPA and pass those costs on to our ratepayers, residents. The Democrats on the other side, you know what they said? I've heard it and heard it. It's part of doing business, really on the backs of all of us. Our Republican conference knew that this was coming early on and been very vocal at every energy hearing, but the warnings have fallen on deaf ears. We also know that our infrastructure is not ready for the demands of these ill-conceived Democrat policies. We are here today to say we must let common sense and reality guide our states into energy policies and have a partnership. The other side points and says that it is important to protect the environment. We stand here today and say, yes, we agree. But with the policies coming from Albany, it is the cart before the horse. Goals are fine, but mandates are wrong. And the CLCPA is harming every family's quality of life. It is critical that we creep closer to their deadlines, that our state comes up with realistic and safe, affordable plan that affords unrealistic ban. And you hear what I said here? We need a plan and not a ban. Looking closer to the Democrats' energy mandates, you see the issues immediately. Right now, New York State is trying to stop the use of natural gas without a realistic plan and how to still power and heat our homes and businesses. But we are starting to see the timid acceptance of common sense with the expanded flow of the Iroquois pipeline and talks of small nuclear modulars. They are admitting there is a problem. The Democrats are admitting that there is a problem. It is clear we need to do more to avoid impending energy crisis in New York State. We still have frozen natural gas being trucked in on highways and bridges, diesel trucks that are polluting our atmosphere. And then we are using energy to liquefy the gas to put into our systems. How is that unbelievable? No one knows that. And I mentioned that again at the energy meeting, that's what we're doing. We're trucking in natural gas on our roadways, frozen natural gas. But nobody wants to talk about this. I have spoken to the PSC, and they have said that they are looking to fix it. That is not an answer, looking to fix it. We need to make sure that natural gas flows to further expansion of the Iroquois pipeline and other means, including the Nessie Williams domestic, and I'm saying domestic natural pipeline for our future energy needs. We need to get the trucks off the roads. We need to ensure New Yorkers have an access to affordable and clean energy, and we need to keep rates and increasing rates that are keep increasing even more than they have. That is why the group of small businesses, labor unions, builders, and energy experts who have a federal lawsuit, and again, everybody needs to understand there's a federal lawsuit against the state that is ongoing to stop the natural gas ban. I am proud of these plaintiffs and have stood to show my support. It is against federal law and the Constitution of the United States to New York to ban natural gas, and it is important that this lawsuit is victorious. Again, we need a plan and not a ban. A key to the Democrats' policy is battery storage. The reality is the danger of our residents and our first responders. I am proud of the two towns that I represent, Smithtown under the leadership of Supervisor Ed Wareheim, and Huntington, the guidance of Supervisor Ed Smith, to place a moratorium on all sightings of these facilities. And more towns are following suit, as they all should. This is nothing but a dangerous experiment that's going to cost all ratepayers more in their utility bills. The New York State DEC has little oversight of these facilities, and we need to stop putting the cart before the horse. We saw the damage that occurred upstate New York, East Hampton, Long Island, and recently the Moss Landing battery storage facility. What an environmental disaster. Battery storage burns up to 5,000 degrees. As soon as water hits it, it turns into steam. It does not work. And we're putting our first responders and our residents in harm's way. We have volunteer firemen that are put in harm's way. Yes, it does not work. It is unbelievable to see that it is unacceptable danger of these facilities. That is why I put together legislation to protect our communities and making sure that New York State DEC has a say that our residents are put first. I know this will be discussed shortly, but the way of moving forward is to put another unfunded mandate on all our schools with EV buses. Aside from the cost, the reality is that, again, the Democrats' directive is not based on facts because the infrastructure cannot handle the demand. That is truly the place, again, the cart before the horse. We are here to say that it's clear from every reasonable view that it's time that is to pause the unrealistic mandates of the CLCPA. It is time to fully examine the cost of these energy policies that will burden our ratepayers with the realistic about our future's energy needs. We need to work together to bring our energy usage into the future, and we are here today to show some of the better ways for cleaner future energy that still makes New York affordable. I have already been in touch with the EPA head, a former Republican state senator, and Congressman Lee Zeldin, and regional director, and a former Republican state senator, Mike Matucci, to discuss energy issues. We all agree that we support moving to a cleaner fuel, but we must be accomplished without harming our residents and the hardworking men and women of labor and our small businesses. I urge Governor Hochul to do the same so that we can find the realistic solutions to protect those who all jointly serve, and we need a pause on all energy mandates. Along with the bills presented here today, we are calling for feasibility studies on green hydrogen, geothermal networks, sewage heat recovery expansion, carbon capture, retool all our existing power plants with carbon capture. Very important. That's the most economical way to go. Nuclear with the small nuclear modular units. We support wind and solar, but that is not the answer. The Trump administration just stopped the funding for offshore projects. In September, we, with my colleagues, attended the Governor's Energy Summit with all the colleagues, 80%, and 80% of the talk was about small modular units, small nuclear modular units, and carbon capture. But again, that is down the line. 2030 is right down the line. right down the road. I am introducing legislation that would create the Climate Action Cost Council that meets quarterly, that will look into the real costs of New York State's energy policy, so then we could truly protect ratepayers and businesses and workers. Just everybody needs to realize that the CLCPA went into effect. You had the Climate Action Committee, and do you realize they haven't met in 3 years? 3 years. We need to make sure that we have this council. I urge NYSERDA and the PSC to do their jobs to protect our ratepayers. This is why they are here for us. New York State needs to actually talk to all the stakeholders, energy experts, and ratepayers to come up with a realistic and reasonable approach that fulfills our energy needs while preserving our environment. New York deserves to be protected for the future and for their present. Our conference will fight for all New Yorkers and residents and all of our ratepayers. And you know, you see here, we need a plan, not a ban, and we're looking at Governor Hochul. This went all into Governor Hochul's budgets. We all know that. 2026, buildings 6 stories and under have to be all electric. By 2030, just so everybody understands, you won't be able to replace your gas stove, oven, boilers. You're not going to be able to do any of that. That's how far this goes. We need a pause, Governor, now. So I am proud to be here today with my colleagues, and the next speaker is somebody that has been very vocal at all the hearings, and he's a mentor to me, our great Senator Tom O'Mara.
Good job, Mario. Thank you so much, Mario, for your leadership on this issue, and for my colleagues being here today, for the media being here today to help us continue to shine a light on this lack of a plan and energy policy in New York State. Senator Mattera said it best. We have the cart before the horse. And we really don't even have a horse. This mandates, the CLCPA, is based on technologies that do not even exist today. We need to have a plan that is based in reality, that's feasible, that's practical, that's reliable, and that's affordable. Affordability is a huge issue with this CLCPA. And we're just seeing it now in customers' bills. Just the tip of the iceberg with the rate increases that customers are seeing, as well as other issues. I represent an area served by NYSEG and RG&E, and I can tell you that my office and many of my colleagues' offices are being inundated every day from constituents' complaints about their bills doubling, tripling, quadrupling with no rational explanation. It's time that we get answers. Answers from the governor, answers from the majority leaders of both houses, the Democrat leaders of both houses of this state legislature, from the Public Service Commission, from NYSERDA, from DEC, on what is driving these costs up, because it is all obfuscation. The leaders that are pushing this CLCPA do not want New Yorkers to know what's coming. They do not want New Yorkers to know what it's going to cost, and they're coming up with all kinds of excuses and misleading information on these billing issues that are going on right now. It's not just based on the NYSEG RG&E's basically 30+% rate increase that was approved a year and a half, 2 years ago. It's still being phased in. Installation of smart meters. I haven't talked to anybody yet that had a smart meter put in whose bills monthly escalated exponentially with no explanation, no different usage of power in their homes, yet they're getting struck with this. These costs are going up. We cannot do this with wind and solar. It's not feasible. We've seen the collapse of wind projects off Long Island for several years in a row now, based on the cost. We are seeing Europe retract from years of this effort and the failed effort to build their power grid off of wind and solar. It's not working, it's failing, and their energy costs are quadrupling. We should look and see what works and proceed diligently to do what we can to clean our environment, to lower emissions from energy production. Nuclear is a focus that we need to fast track. We need to get that going in New York State. You know, our energy production in New York State had the lowest emissions per capita of any state in the country prior to the closing of Indian Point nuclear facility. Since then, emissions served by the Indian Point plant in the metropolitan New York City area have increased by over 40%. We're going backwards, folks. We're having the opposite effect on what we want to happen, to lower emissions. Yet we need to look realistically at the global picture and the fact that New York State accounts for 0.4% of global emissions. It's less than 0.5%. And we should continue to strive to do better. And we can do better, and we are leading the way in New York State, and we should continue to. But if we eliminate our 0.4% of emissions on the Earth, we're going to have zero impact on our climate issues that we're trying to deal with the climate change that we're trying to address with this mandate of the CLCPA with no plan. It's not working, it's a failure, it's driving up costs, and New Yorkers deserve to know what these costs are going to be. You know, I just asked a couple weeks ago at the energy budget hearing a question that I've asked 3 or 4 years in a row at least now on the Champlain-Hudson transmission line coming down that's going to be completed next year. What is the impact of that project, that transmission line, going to be on the average single-family homeowner in New York State? For the 3rd or 4th or 5th year in a row, they couldn't tell me. The Public Service Commission, they don't know. NYSERDA, they don't know. They know. They're not telling New Yorkers because they don't want New Yorkers to know. And that's one aspect. We're already seeing the infrastructure improvements being baked into these rate increases that are driving rates through the roofs. It is a direct result of the CLCPA initiatives that's being passed on to the ratepayers in this state. And we're going to see it not just in our rates, we're going to see it in the cost of goods across the board, the cost of transportation, the cost of production, all going to be driven up by this. And that is going to be a disaster for the affordability, the cost of living in New York State. And it's only going to exacerbate the exodus of people from New York State to other states. So we need really, as Mario said, to put a pause on this. Let's do a real cost-benefit analysis and see what are we going to get and how much is it going to cost. New Yorkers deserve to know how much is this going to cost. Because I can tell you, when the average New Yorker figures this out, and I've been screaming about this for 7, 8 years now, still not getting the attention that it needs, still not getting real answers on what the costs are going to be. When New Yorkers find out, it's going to be a revolt in New York State. And the leaders that have driven us down this path, they're going to be voted out of office. There will be repercussions to those that have forced this down the throats of New Yorkers with no explanation and no plan. And with that, I'm happy to turn it over to my colleague, Senator Dan Stec.
Thanks, Senator. Good afternoon, everyone. I want to reiterate a couple points that my colleagues have already made. I, too, am getting routine calls and emails to my office from ratepayers that are concerned and upset with the rate increases that they're already starting to see. And folks, I just want to tell you, we are at the beginning of this journey. These are the beginning of what will be many future rate increases. And just hitting the pause button and waving the wand and telling NYPA that you can't pursue a rate increase, that's what the governor's approach to this has been. She hasn't stopped the process. She's not stopping the mandates. We are marching forward, and she's just in the short term placating people, but the reality is that these rate increases are coming, and they're coming because of the costs of the CLCPA. The other point that I want to just touch briefly on is when you shut down energy production or economic activity in New York State to reach some sort of artificial self-imposed goal, and you're pushing that economic activity or that energy production outside of our state borders, that doesn't mean that demand for the products and services has gone down. That doesn't mean that the demand for energy has gone down. That demand is still there. What it means is that the economic activity, the pollution, the energy generation and the pollution associated with that is getting pushed to another location. And as Senator O'Mara pointed out, in many instances, that's going to get produced dirtier than it was in New York. So now the planet has suffered because the overall impact of the atmosphere is that we have a dirtier atmosphere. And what's the results for us in New York? Well, we lose the economic activity, and we will continue to pay through the nose for the artificial energy that we're bringing in from outside New York State. As a 8-year member of the Navy's nuclear power program, I am astounded by the lack of basic engineering principles and basic math that my colleagues on the other side of the aisle have thrust upon ratepayers in New York in their pursuit for feel-good energy policies with the CLCPA. Here's a quote. The full cost of meeting the CLCPA's objectives will be between $280 and $340 billion. That's a direct quote from the Empire Center's February 2024 report entitled Green Guardrails Guiding New York's Drive to Lower Emissions. The report goes on further to say, quote, it suggests that between 12% and 15% of the purported CLCPA budget has already been committed with very little to show for it and the vast majority of projects yet to come. That's not me, that's the Empire Center reporting that. In July 2024, Comptroller DiNapoli, not a member of our conference, issued a report that stated New York is falling well short of the goals in the CLCPA. So we're behind these goals already, but we're still seeing the rate increases in your bills. So now we're in a place where Democrats are looking to phase out existing power sources while green energy sources are not being generated at a rate to meet the 2040 100% clean energy grid goal. It's barely meeting the needs of the present moment, and it's only going to get worse. New York's independent system operator, which operates our state's energy grid, is predicting an energy shortfall by 2033. As existing systems are retired without replacement, demand increases, and CLCPA deadlines all loom. We're already seeing the impact it's having on taxpayers. National Grid and Con Ed are both cited the implementation of CLCPA as partial justifications for their current rate increases. Again, more of those to follow. New Yorkers already pay some of the highest energy costs in the entire nation, and if the state continues down its path, it's only going to get worse. During the January 28th budget hearing, I asked NYSERDA Director Dorian Harris about CLCPA's estimated $300 billion price tag and the impact this will have on ratepayers. In previous years when I asked that question, she couldn't agree to a number. She just stated that the cost of not doing it was greater than the cost of doing it, which to me implies you know what those two numbers are. But again, I think they're withholding information from the taxpayers and the ratepayers. But she admitted in that hearing that these exorbitant costs will be passed down to consumers and referred to it as, quote, incremental costs. There's nothing incremental about a double-digit rate increase for essential utilities with the promise of continued further increases in the immediate future. We must provide long-term stability to our energy market. I sponsor legislation that would provide a full cost-benefit analysis of the CLCPA and would require freezing its costly mandates for 10 years while that analysis occurs. Governor Hochul and Democrat leaders need to see that when it comes to the CLCPA and its mandates, it's too much in terms of price, too soon in terms of its deadlines, and is likely too unrealistic in terms of its goals. This is the time to act now. Failure to immediately rein in the CLCPA and its sticker price and failure to invest in reliable, proven energy sources will only leave millions of our ratepayers out in the cold. You do not need to be a nuclear engineer to understand this, but as a nuclear engineer, those are the facts. And now I'm pleased to turn it over to my colleague from Long Island, Senator Canzoneri-Fitzpatrick.
Thank you to Senator Mattera for organizing this important conference and being such a wonderful leader as our energy ranker. The CLCPA did two very important things. It eliminated our ability to use gas, natural gas, and it is forcing us to become fully electric. And as was stated, we don't have the infrastructure to support a fully electric grid. We do not have that ability. So cart before the horse, once again, is worth to repeat. As was also stated, the comptroller has specifically said that the PSC, as well as NYSERDA, have not met all the essential components of complying with the Climate Act, including determining the cost of transition to renewable energy, and that the cost of transition has not been reasonably estimated. We've heard some numbers. They're astounding numbers. And what I can tell you is that one thing is for sure: energy affects every person in New York State. Without doubt, we all need energy. We need energy to power our homes, our businesses, our cars, every mode of transportation. This is a critical issue that every New Yorker should advocate for and speak loudly. My bill, Senate Bill 5515, requires the Public Service Commission to calculate and disclose exactly how much each monthly bill is tied to the CLCPA, ensuring that ratepayers finally get the transparency they deserve. We need to see a breakout of the costs of the CLCPA and find out what it is truly costing us. I suspect that when New Yorkers find out what it really is costing, they will not be happy, they will be vocal, and that they will vote out the people that started this project without knowing the cost and knowing the path that they were taking us down. Our governor has proven one thing. She used her ability to pause congestion pricing when it was politically advantageous to her. She has the ability to pause the effects of the CLCPA and stop us from going down this road, because the disastrous effects of not having energy will harm every New Yorker. So I join with my Senate colleagues here today to say, Governor Hochul and the state legislature, please look at this. Figure out where we have gone wrong to stop it, to pause it. Are we in favor of clean energy? Absolutely. But as you heard, we're taking a step backward. We're not moving in the right direction. Tap the resources of the people that are in the energy field, know how to do this properly. That's what we need to do. And we cannot go down without a proper cost analysis of knowing how this is going to affect everybody's pocketbook. We are in an inflationary economy, and we've got a budget breathing down our neck that's going to increase costs even more. How much can New Yorkers sustain? We've had enough. We need to pause this and figure it out. And with that, I will turn it back over to Senator Mattera for closing comments.
So, you know, you've heard my colleagues, you heard me. Everybody knows this is such an important issue. Everybody knows that we cannot afford any more price tags. We're being gouged to death. We have food insecurities that are out of control with people right now, going just to the supermarket. You know, one of the senators mentioned about, like, you know, we have resources from other states. Does anybody understand that? In other words, 40% of our energy comes from transmission lines that are from Jersey, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, that, guess what? They ran on fossil fuels. And I said this before, what do we have, a bubble over New York State? No one's talking about that, though. No one's talking about we need to be self-sufficient and self-reliant here. So, you know what? There's somebody that's been very important to me that I want to mention, a gentleman named Rich Ellenbogen. He just cares about New York State. He's been doing renewable energy since the 90s, since the Clinton days. All his businesses have renewable energy. He's the one that has the Cornell professors baffled with all his data that he has. And if anybody here would love to speak to Rich, he'll talk to you for a long time, and he would love to speak to you. He'll give you all the data to prove that wind, solar, and especially battery storage, let's talk about battery storage, is nothing going to cost all ratepayers trillions of dollars, and it's not going to work. So, Governor, please, listen loud and clear. We need to put this on pause. We need to make sure that we protect and we have a plan and not a ban, and protect our natural gas for our future.